Modern society goes to absolutely incredible lengths to avoid, hide, and basically just ignore one very specific topic. We're talking about mortality. But in this explainer, instead of treating death like this massive, morbid taboo, we're going to flip the script entirely. We're going to look at it through the lens of a daily superpower. What if the very thing we spend our entire lives running from is actually the exact key to unlocking a life of absolute clarity? So what if the absolute most powerful thing you could do every single day was to actively think about your own death? I know, just let that sink in for a second. It's a hugely provocative question, right? It feels completely counterintuitive to how we operate today. But when you really dig into history, you quickly find that some of the most disciplined, purpose-driven people to ever walk the earth used this exact practice as their ultimate grounding tool. And it brings us to a really haunting truth. Today, we're diving into two completely different civilizations and two entirely distinct faiths and frameworks, but they share one haunting realization. We're going to compare ancient Roman Stoicism with Islam, specifically zeroing in on how they approach the concept of death. And the real question we're unpacking here is, are these just two different flavors of the exact same philosophy? Or when you actually read the sources, is one infinitely deeper than the other? By the end of this analysis, I promise you, you're going to see the concept of death in a totally different light. All right, let's start with path number one, Memento Mori and Stoicism. I want you to picture the sheer grit and glory of the ancient Roman Empire. Imagine the roaring crowds, those victorious generals returning from massive, earth-shattering conquests, being treated literally like gods walking among men. I mean, it's pretty easy to lose your head in that kind of glory, right? To literally keep their egos in check, the Romans had this absolutely fascinating tradition. As a victorious general rode through the cheering crowds in his chariot, a slave would ride right beside him. And over the deafening roar of the crowd, the slave would lean in and just whisper a simple Latin phrase into his ear, Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Now, what's really interesting here is the underlying intention. This wasn't done to humiliate the guy. It was a grounding mechanism, a stark reminder of his shared human fragility. Over time, the great Stoic philosophers actually took this cultural phrase and elevated it into a rigorous, full-blown spiritual practice. Take the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, for example, probably one of the most famous Stoics out there. He wrote this in his private journal, a text we now know as Meditations. He said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Just think about the incredible urgency packed into those words. For the Stoics, having this constant awareness of death was the ultimate filter for life. It was literally the ultimate cure for wasting time. And you see that exact same urgency build with another heavyweight Stoic thinker, Seneca. He put it even sharper. He said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." By visualizing the absolute end of the road, the Stoics essentially forced themselves into an unbreakable focus on the present moment. They literally used the end to maximize the now. So the big takeaway here is how intensely practical the Stoic framework actually is. The whole goal is to stop wasting time, stop chasing absolute vanity, and focus intensely on what is actually in your control, which is your virtue, your character, and your daily choices. In Stoic thought, death is simply a return to nature. There's nothing to fear, for sure, but there's also nothing to hope for. It's just a natural, neutral end. And as the source points out, that absolute neutrality is exactly what gives Stoicism its power, but it's also its limit. Okay, let's pivot completely now to our second path, Dhikr al-Mawt in Islam. We're shifting the narrative here from a philosophical, mental exercise into something much deeper, a profound spiritual act. This is Dhikr al-Mawt. Literally translated, we're talking about the remembrance of death. But the source material is super clear on this difference. In Islam, this isn't just some life hack or philosophical concept to help you optimize your morning routine. It's a mandated act of worship. It's not merely about neutralizing your fear of passing away. It is about completely redirecting your entire life toward its true ultimate purpose, which is accountability before Allah. The whole foundation of this practice comes directly from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He gave his companions this really sobering directive. He said, "Remember often the destroyer of pleasures, death." It's a totally striking phrase, isn't it? Destroyer of pleasures. It's intentionally designed to actively break the spell of all our worldly distractions. Islamic scholars actually break this act of worship down into a very specific escalating framework. Let's walk through the 3 steps. Step 1 is simply knowing and deeply internalizing that death is absolutely certain and that it's near. Step 2 gets a lot more vivid. It's actively picturing the actual moment of death itself, visualizing the soul leaving the physical body. And then step 3, and just let this final step land for a second, is imagining yourself standing before your Lord, perfectly accountable for every single second of your life. Now, I get it. To a modern ear, this whole process probably sounds super heavy, maybe even a little morbid. But according to Islamic spirituality, this is actually the exact opposite of morbid. It is the most clarifying, life-giving act a human soul can possibly perform. The renowned scholar Ibn al-Qayyim wrote, "The heart is revived by remembering death, and it is killed by love of this world." The goal isn't just to be super productive and stop procrastinating. The goal is to fill your time with exactly what will matter in the hereafter. So we have the exit versus the door. Having mapped out both Memento Mori and Dhikr al-Mawt, we arrive at a really critical juncture. Where do these traditions actually meet, and where do they fundamentally diverge? First up, where do they intersect? Well, both of these traditions are fighting the exact same enemy. In the Islamic tradition, it's called ghafla, which is essentially the human disease of heedlessness. It's mindless wandering, it's ignoring reality. Both Stoicism and Islam strongly assert that death is real. It's close, and constantly remembering it makes you a profoundly better, sharper person. A devout Stoic and a devout Muslim share this incredible urgency and clarity about life. They both flat out refuse to sleepwalk through their days. But right here is where the paths radically split. And the source material highlights a staggering difference in worldview. For Stoicism, death is an exit. It's a full stop. There's no soul, there's no final judgment, there's no next chapter. It ends neutrally, right there in nature. For Islam, however, death is a door. It's not an ending at all, it's a beginning. The believer remembers death because what comes after that door is considered infinitely more real and lasting than anything in this physical world. And this really gets to the heart of the core philosophical split between the two. Because of how they view the actual event of death, the core question each one asks is completely different. The Stoic asks, how do I live well before the end? All the focus is on maximizing the present moment. The Muslim asks, how do I prepare for what comes after the end? All the focus is on eternity. The source states it so beautifully. One gives you a better life, the other gives you a better eternity. Transforming your soul. Let's bring all these ancient, high-level concepts down to a super practical level. How do these two distinct paths actually map out into real-world internal results? Just look at this striking contrast in the emotional outcomes here. When a Stoic practices Memento Mori, their primary reaction is motivation. They feel spurred to act, and they meet the concept of death with this calm acceptance. It makes them highly productive. But when a Muslim practices Dhikr al-Mawt, the reaction is entirely different. They feel humbled, hopeful, and terrified, all at the exact same time. And that intense spiritual tension creates an action of deep, rigorous preparation. Memento Mori might change your productivity, but Dhikr al-Mawt is designed to change your soul. Ultimately, the absolute biggest takeaway from our source material today is this. Whether you approach it as a Stoic exit or an Islamic door, both of these ancient practices are infinitely superior to what most of humanity does, which is simply ignoring death entirely. The instruction from both is crystal clear. Remember death. Not to be depressed by it, but to finally, truly begin to live. Which brings us right to the end of this explainer, and I want to leave you with a question. When you look at your own life, your daily habits, and your own deeply held beliefs, which paradigm changes you more? Is it the urgent grounding reality of Memento Mori, or is it the eternal, accountable preparation of Dhikr al-Mawt? I really challenge you to reflect on that today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and as always, let these insights shape the way you live.